Hello everyone. So today we are continuing with the discussions that we were having from this text readings on Kerala, and today I'm planning to deal with a poem by a writer called Jeet. The title of the poem is Malayalam's Ghazal. Now Jeet, even though he's a Malayali by origin, he has been educated and he has lived his life in different parts of the world, and he has also been exposed to many other languages and cultures, and presently he is actually not as acquainted or as connected with his mother tongue, which is Malayalam, because most of his interactions on an everyday scale and the kind of things that he writes, etc., are mostly in English. So Malayalam, even though it is his mother tongue, the language and the culture into which he was born into, but what happens is gradually as they move around and find different avenues and find different languages to explore, somehow a deep kind of a connection with Malayalam or your mother tongue is lost. But what is very peculiar is that many of the very deep emotional experiences that you have actually happen to you in your mother tongue. Probably these are experiences of pain or experiences of pleasure, or somehow many deep experiences actually happen to you in your mother tongue. However many languages that you go to or are acquainted with or you become really comfortable with, somehow there is a special place which your mother tongue occupies in your heart, right? So similarly, Jeet Thayyil also has a lot of respect and love for the Malayalam language, but he can only nostalgically look back at the kind of connection that he had with Malayalam language, because even Malayalam works actually reach him through translations nowadays, and he also discusses through his poem the problem that is there with translations, because many words or many phrases are actually very peculiar to different cultures. For example, when we say amma in Malayalam and when we say mother in English, it is not actually the same, because many cultural notions, many emotional layers are there for each word which originates from different cultures, and these regional aspects or these emotional aspects can never be very easily translated into another language. But Kerala has been a place which has always welcomed different cultures and welcomed all kinds of literatures. And we Keralites, or in Kerala generally, there is a very welcoming attitude towards literature or poetry from many other cultures. I think from childhood onwards we are encouraged to read literature from other cultures. Now, talking about Jeet Thayyil, he was educated in Hong Kong, New York, and Bombay, and he's a performance poet, and he has published multiple works, collected poems, Apocalypse, or Gemini, the Book of Chocolate Scenes, and there are many works which you will find in the text. I'm not planning to discuss them elaborately. And he's also been an editor for many anthologies of poetry, and he's also been awarded the Sahitya Academy Award for English Literature. Now, coming to Malayalam's Ghazal, this is a very peculiar poem. Firstly, let's talk about the form of the poem, which you would see in the introductory part of the text. Since it's a very brief introduction, I think I'll read out and try to explain that. Malayalam's Ghazal is taken from the collected poems, which was published in 2015 by Aleph Book Company. It is a poem written in traditional rhyming couplets with a refrain. What is a refrain? In poems, at times you see many lines repeating a word or phrase. It sort of gives a kind of a musical quality, a kind of repetition adds a kind of a rhythm to a poem. That is what we call as a refrain. So it has rhythmic, rhyming couplets with a refrain, some repeated word or a phrase. Each line has the same meter. If you look at it, in most modern poems, they are written in free verse. There is no strict meter which is adhered to, but here you can see a typical meter which is being given. The meter can be identified using the pattern followed: unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. So if you divide each line into syllables, this kind of a pattern will be followed. You can see that in the poem. Now, the line ending with the word Malayalam is repeated at frequent intervals within the poem, especially at the end of the stanza. Malayalam is kept on being repeated, and it tries to communicate what gets lost in translation, many of the cultural values or ideas or even emotions which gets lost in the process of translation. And it also shows the kind of a traumatizing situation for a bilingual writer who fails to find words to communicate between languages or precisely communicate emotions or ideas between different languages. And he desperately writes that there are no proper words for some English words when it comes to Malayalam, because in each culture the vocabulary and the kind of emotions communicated through words actually are very different. Each language has its own identity and depth. So no language is superior or inferior to one another. The kind of experiences and depths that all of them capture would be very different. The poet tries to comprehend his land of birth sitting in the rooms of English. He has traveled to many other countries, and now he is not looking at Malayalam as a native who's very deeply connected with Malayalam, but rather he has traveled to many places and he has experienced multiple languages, and he is actually looking for his mother tongue in the rooms of English, because he interacts in English mostly and is using English on an everyday scale. Now it is English which has sort of become a reference to understand Malayalam. He asks the readers to open the windows to a fresh air of their mother tongue. So this is something which you might be able to connect to, like you have a lot of experiences and explorations in other languages like English or Hindi, or whichever place that you go to and live for a really long time. You have a lot of experiences and deeper understandings in a particular language which is different from your mother tongue. But there are occasions when you feel so relieved to understand something or to communicate something in your mother tongue, or there are these moments of freedom that you feel when you're actually interacting in your mother tongue. It's something that he mentions, the fresh air of their mother tongue, the freedom of their mother tongue. Poetry is the school of lost tongues, and he welcomes the readers as the visitors to the school. Poetry is the school of lost tongues. You lose your mother tongue in the process of traveling, in the process of exploration. You lose the connection with your mother tongue, but poetry allows you to reconnect with it. Poetry is the school of those tongues which are lost. So everybody should come to poetry so that they can experience their mother tongue once again and probably reconnect to their mother tongue. World literature comes to Malayalam through translations. Most of our parents and elders would have who would have read classics from different countries and different cultures. They probably read it through translations which came into Malayalam. These efforts at translation also show how receptive Kerala or Malayalam has been to the knowledge produced in and sensibilities produced in other cultures. So eventually, in a very teasing manner, his father challenges him to write a couplet in Malayalam. He says all these things that he wants to reconnect to his language. He has lost connection with his language and he respects his language, but his father teases him that, can you try writing a couplet in Malayalam? That's something that he challenges with. Now, without much further ado, we'll get into the poem. Listen, someone is saying a prayer in Malayalam. Listen, someone seems to be saying a prayer in Malayalam. He says there is no word for despair in Malayalam. He says there is no word for despair in Malayalam. Despair. We have words like dukkam, sangadam, vishamam. But do you think that they are equivalents of this word despair? Right. Despair is actually a very deeply painful kind of an experience, a kind of a distress which comes in, right? So I don't think these words like dukkam, vishamam, sangadam, they actually can, replace this word. So again, it sort of shows the cultural difference which is there. Probably, this kind of deep pain has not been acknowledged by a language like Malayalam. Sometimes at daybreak, you sing a Gujarati Garbha, which means your exposure to different cultures. So you travel to many other places and you are acquainted with the art forms and language of different places, and somehow you feel at home with the other cultures. Sometimes at daybreak you sing a Gujarati Garbha, a Gujarati song comes to your mind because you have been exposed to that culture. And at night you open your hair in Malayalam. At night you open your hair. At night you free yourself. At night you get comfortable with yourself in your mother tongue in Malayalam. To understand symmetry, understand Kerala. To understand the union of differences, or to understand harmony or symmetry, you should understand Kerala. To understand the coming together of cultures, to understand the symmetry of cultures, symmetry of languages, you should actually try to understand Kerala. The longest palindrome is there, Malayalam. Palindrome, what is a palindrome? Words which read the same from the beginning and the end. Malayalam, Malayam. It reads Malayalam from the front and also from the end. It's called a palindrome. It is the longest palindrome, they say, Malayalam. When you've been too long in the rooms of English, when you spend so much time using the English language, open your windows to fresh air of Malayalam. Free yourself, open your windows to the fresh air or the freedom of your mother tongue, which is Malayalam. Visitors are welcome in the school of lost tongues. So poetry is the school of lost tongues, and anybody can come in so that they can reconnect with their mother tongue or the lost culture. Someone's endowed a high chair in Malayalam, and in this school there is a high position which has been given for Malayalam. I greet you, my ancestors. So Jeet, Thayyil, or probably the speaker of the poem, is actually greeting his ancestors who used to speak in Malayalam, who used to read in Malayalam, or scholars and linguists, all the scholars and linguists in his land. And my father, who recites Baudelaire in Malayalam. Baudelaire is a very popular French poet, and his father used to read and recite Baudelaire because translations were available back then. So they were that receptive to knowledge or ideas from other cultures. So he pays a lot of respect to his ancestors and his father for having inculcated this kind of an open culture, or a kind of a multilingual, allowing a kind of a multilingual approach in learning or in reading, etc. So the concluding couplet is very interesting. Jeet, such drama with the scraps, Now, for somebody who has traveled to other places and has spent a lot of time not using Malayalam, what happens is that when they try to speak Malayalam, they speak in bits and pieces, these scraps. Like some words will be in English, some words will be in Malayalam. It becomes a kind of a hybrid of a language. So his father is teasing him. Gee, such drama with the scrap. No, not his father. Probably he himself is. Probably I was mistaken. Probably he himself is teasing himself or challenging himself that, Jeet, such drama with the scraps, such, what to say. Don't be so dramatic with all these bits and pieces putting together. Write a couplet if you dare, completely in Malayalam. So if you dare, write a couplet entirely in Malayalam. It's not his father. That was, I think I understood it wrong. It's probably he himself challenging, him to write poetry in Malayalam. So that's about it. He looks nostalgically at the connection that he had with his mother tongue, which is Malayalam. He also pays respect to his ancestors who produced such tremendous, amazing works in Malayalam. And there is a kind of desire to reconnect to his mother tongue, and also this confusion that different cultures can never be easily translated into another culture because of each culture is unique, and the kind of ideas that each culture communicates is also very unique. So that's the crux of the poem Malayalam's Ghazal by Jeet. Now the title probably is a Ghazal for Malayalam, or a kind of a praising song for Malayalam. That's what he has written. Right. Yes. So with that, I'll conclude. Probably I'll see you in the other lectures which will follow. Thank you.